by doing those little things, you get to see how a set is run, and it's always a learning process. I started off by, ironing shirts, even though I knew how to iron shirts.
So my name's Kay Elliott. I'm Director of High End TV at Screen Skills. We're really lucky to be able to deliver today's session, costume design, casualty to Doctor Who and everything in between, we've called it. And it's a really whistle-stop tour through costume, focusing on two really significant individuals who've obviously got long-standing careers working in costume, who'll no doubt provide us with a brilliant session today. Screen Skills, just to give you a quick flavour, we're the UK skills body. We're here to support individuals from the beginning of their career all the way through with their skills needs. So please do check out our website and keep in touch with us if there's things that we can help you with to help you develop and sustain your career in film and television. Also, this session today particularly has been supported by the High End TV Skills Fund. Their investment enables us to deliver a host of skills, including sessions such as today. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our brilliant two session leads today. So we have Tracy Ewan Powell, who has 20 years experience in costume design, and also Ray Holman, who's also has a long-standing career working in costume and also award-winning. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Tracy and Ray, who will take us through today's session.
So do you want to start, Ray, or is that...
Yeah, I'm very happy to start. Hello, everybody. It's quite interesting doing this session for both Tracy and I, because we work in the same building at the BBC in Roselock in Cardiff. Casualty is down the one end of the building, and it's always there, and Doctor Who is at the other end of the building, and Tracy and I never meet.
No.
Even though the building is not that big. We're always working in our separate studios or in our separate offices, and at any point, if we want to meet, we have to go out of the building to meet and have a coffee. Interestingly, talking with Screen Skills and about Screen Skills, Tracy and I have differing backgrounds, but also we would like to kind of point out that obviously by the time you see costume get to the screen, that is the end result. And there's a lot of work that happens before the program is made. And within the costume department, there are a lot of different jobs and different skills that can be used within both our departments. Now, Tracy works on continuing drama, as Casualty is it is always being filmed, isn't it? Or apart from a lockdown.
We film 48 weeks of the year, so we have 40. So we shoot 47 episodes a year.
Yeah, and then I work at the other end of the building on Doctor Who, which is more freelance based, and it does take around 9 months to make a series of Doctor Who. But basically, we all then leave the building and go off and do other projects, as do some of Tracy's, a lot of Tracy's department. But we both, in many ways, we have different agendas, but to the same end. So basically our processes are the same, but we go about them in very different ways because of the nature of our productions. So shall I hand over to you, Tracy, and let you talk about continuing drama and your role in it?
So hi, I'm Tracy Ewan Powell, and I've been a series costume designer for over 20 years. My career
Sorry, can I interrupt you and just tell people where we first met?
Was it the Bill?
Yeah. So
the Bill. Yes.
we were both. What were we? Were we costume designers?
No, I think I was a standby, actually. If I'm honest.
But by the time I got to the Bill, you were a costume.
I know.
Units, didn't we? Anyway.
Pardon?
We ran our units.
Yes, we were costume designer by that point. Yeah, we would. Which the Bill is run very similar to to Casualty. In fact, I think most long-running dramas are run very similar because they're continuing. The series designer employs, which I don't think many people know, they employ designers to do each block. So my role really is to look after all the main cast and the continuity and make sure that they all their civvies, their civvies is all up to date and on trend, and we have to think about the demographics of who watches the show and keeping the continuity for 52 weeks of the year and making sure that those actors stay within their realm of their biog, if you want, and their story arc. So I have to make sure that each time a designer comes in and designs an episode, they try and keep that continuity. It's really, really important. And it's quite hard sometimes because everyone comes in with their own idea, and that's just not costume. That's across the board. Each unit has a whole new crew, director, the producer, everybody. So we have 2 units shooting all the time, 48 weeks a year. It's a big machine. They always call it a bit like a juggernaut that just continues. It never stops. I employ, at one point, we can have 14 crew, which I know some of you who might have worked on films, that probably doesn't seem very much, because when you have big crowd days, it's, but to have that amount of people around all the time is quite challenging in managerial side as well. But it's a great stepping stone, Casualty, because I don't know whether it's because maybe we have a bit more time and we can be a bit more structured in training because we're there, 52 weeks a year. So anybody that comes to us, we manage to give them an all-round training, because I think people often think about Casualty as being a bit boring. I think there is a real thing across the industry, unfortunately. But until people actually do it, then they think, oh, actually this isn't, Casualty and The Bill both had stunts every episode. So all the designers had to know, whether they had to buy triples, doubles. We never shoot in sync, never shoot in story. So we could literally do, which is what we do on Casualty a lot, is we do the stunt before we've even seen the character in their own clothes sometimes, or the aftermath. So it's not just buying one set of clothes. You could be, buying 4, 5 or 6 sets. So you have to literally set those costumes out of the event, so to speak. So one will be when the accidents first happened, and keeping an eye on blood and making sure that we keep all that in track is quite hard. But it's the training for us, through the design process and everything it is a good stepping board for people to learn that. The designers, we have a lot of them are people that have come through the ranks, actually. So it works really, really well. So as a designer of the series, I have probably at one time up to 6 to 8 scripts in my head, because we've got 2 units shooting, and that's 4 episodes. So that's 4 scripts. And then we have a unit prepping, and then we have a unit who's starting up. And the process on Casualty is very much, we have a medical meeting. So you can imagine we have to work very closely with prosthetics. You also have to not be squeamish, let's put it that way, because often makeup will sit in a meeting and they'll show a picture of something, say somebody with a really badly broken leg, and it will be an actual broken leg. So you have to, have to get used to a lot of stuff, a lot of blood. If you're squeamish, it's not the best show maybe to be involved in, but you will get an all-round experience from it. Shopping with the main cast is very different, I think, isn't it, with you, Ray? Because you can sometimes know what is happening, can't you? If you do an 8 series or a 6 series, you've got more of a structured arc, haven't you, sometimes with a character?
Yes, yeah. And I always, as casting permitted and time permitted, I do it myself. So yeah. That it sometimes is very last minute.
Yeah.
because you don't get the cost through
Yeah.
in in good time, in as much time as you'd like. But with all the things that we're going to talk about today, it's the same on every job. It's the
Yeah.
same on a film.
Yeah.
We're not exclusive, are we?
No.
So
No, because we have, because often what will happen, I think, in long running, because a lot of the actors are with us for can be a year, which is a whole series. That some have been there. You've got Charlie, who's been on Casualty for 35 years. So I think it's quite challenging sometimes to try and keep hold of that character and keep it, the character in line with their character, if that makes sense, because it's a long time. I mean, a lot of the actors, if they've been on it a long time, are very good. They know their character better than anybody. So you have to be guided by them. And I think it's really important as well when you're doing contemporary costume that the actor has to be really comfortable in what they're wearing. Because if they walk on set and they're not comfortable because it's something, maybe your vision isn't actually, maybe a little bit different to what they had in mind. So you have to sometimes compromise. And I think often people who go into design have things set in their head that they think that's the way they want that character to look, and cannot always be that way. So with long running, I think there's a bit of a challenge there to try and pull people back and make sure.
And that's the same with with anything I do. I think I've said in my few podcasts I've done in lockdown that it's a collaboration. You don't go in as some kind of obviously you bring ideas and you bring what you can bring as a designer, but you don't go into an actor all guns blazing saying this is what you're going to wear.
No,
because
you have to get on with them, don't you? That's the thing. You also have to, I think you have to be confident with them and make them believe that you know their character backwards, basically, because they are trusting you with a costume that they want to walk onto set and feel comfortable, and for people to believe, isn't it, that people believe them.
Authenticity, yeah.
Authenticity, yeah. And I think sometimes, contemporary is quite hard. I think sometimes it's underestimated. I think a lot of time, they look at period productions, which are amazing, don't get me wrong, I think, but I do think that people don't understand how much has to go into a contemporary costume to make it look real, because often you don't want a contemporary costume to be noticed, do you, either? That's the thing.
No, and costume in contemporary terms is very subjective.
Yeah.
It's not objective at all.
No. So it's quite hard. It's much harder, I think, than people think. And also, I think you can tell as well when you see somebody walking in a costume, whether they're comfortable or not. And a lot of actors actually think it comes from their shoes, don't they? Have you found that, Ray, that they...
Shall I tell you a story? When I did Rab C. Nesbitt, and Gregor Fisher, who played Rab, could only do Rab in a pair of vintage Adidas, what we call plimsolls or DAPs, from the 70s. So we were filming in the late 90s. But he couldn't, and inevitably I needed 10 pairs, and you couldn't get them. Yeah. So, and the shoes were the important thing, even though you don't see them on camera very much.
Yeah, but they do. Often actors will feel that it's their shoes that, and I suppose if you think about yourself, when you're walking, if you're comfortable in your feet, then you're...
But also the physicality of performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's really actually interesting you saying that, because that's one of the things that we have to think about, and it was on the bill and Casualty because we did so many stunts. Often when you read through a script, somebody will have this description of we're going to do this amazing stunt with somebody jumping off a bridge, and they've got them wearing a pair of shorts and a sleeveless top, and you have to sit in a meeting and go, I'm really sorry, you're not going to be able to do that. And they look at you going, why? And you say, well, for a start, the stunt man, he's never going to be able to do that stunt falling off a bridge with nothing covering his legs and his arms, or she, I should say, whoever they are. And so you have to try and compromise that whatever they're wearing is something that you can get padding underneath, you know, and make it work so that it's still believable. The character is still believable, but also sometimes the writer also will have an image, won't they, in their head that is very difficult. And you can understand it. It's their passion, isn't it? That script is their passion. So it's quite difficult for them to understand what you're talking about.
Because our job is to try and achieve what the writer wants,
yeah,
and what the production wants. That's our aim.
Yeah,
So,
and it's hard sometimes because you can understand, you know, if you've got an image in your head, then to try and change that. And so we have to be very diplomatic. I think that's the one thing in our role, that we have to be diplomatic, very calm.
Psychologists or psychiatrists.
Yes, psychologists. Everyone's friend.
With body conscious issues.
Yes.
All sorts of things in that respect.
You know, you do have to almost read people's minds sometimes, don't you? And you have to also understand that you've got to see things before they almost happen. But I think that comes with experience, don't you think? That's more.
Yeah.
You see things.
You get an instinct for those things.
Yeah.
And and all these things happen way before anything gets near a camera.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have our medical meeting and then our costume meeting. So our designer goes through the script with the director and the producer often that will be there, and often we have it with makeup as well because of there's prosthetics always involved in Casualty, so we have to go through it together to make sure that what we put them in matches the prosthetic, helps them with the prosthetic.
Are you going to show somebody a slide? Go on.
So this slide is the set at Casualty, which has been completely copied from a real hospital. And if you go on there, if you walk onto set, so many people are so shocked how it really feels like a hospital. It's quite amazing, you know, it's even messy, you know, because you go in most hospitals and they're messy. And not at the moment, maybe they're probably a lot cleaner, aren't they? But this is the way it is, and it is an amazing set. And the other thing they did when we moved from Bristol to Cardiff, they literally that set there, they literally picked it up. Well, obviously dismantled it first, and then moved it into the studio in Cardiff, which was really it did your brain in a little bit, because when you walked onto set, there it was, but it was moved to another country, literally.
And it's quite intimidating, isn't it, going through the Casualty set?
It is.
I think it is, as a designer who's not on it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's very, because we have resus, we have a reception, we have the main entrance, which, you know, even has, you know, the sliding doors. We have everything there that you could imagine. The equipment, we have a CT scan, or is it an MRI? I can't remember. But, you know, we've got one studio, which is, it's even got stairs that go up the middle. So above here, above where you see the ceiling on this clip, there's another floor which is built into the studio, which we use. So it is literally like a hospital that's been squeezed into, and it is a big studio, into a studio. And then you've got the back lot, which is, there's a pub, there's the ambulance run, so everything's in one place. And I think it always surprises people when you walk through those, do you know those shutters that you walk through at the back, Ray?
Yeah, not there that often, but
you know, and it's strange because it's like a street. There's a street and there's a bus stop, and it's, yeah.
And what's your next slide?
What's this one? So I don't know if there's any Casualty fans. This was the one where we had a car bomb, and Ethan got caught in it, and the guy that he was with, he was attached to HEMS for a little while, and the guy that he was with died. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything. I'm sure it's been on screen. So this is basically the aftermath. So as you can see, all the blood and all these suits that we had are all real. We had to have them all made by the real people. they're quite amazing. I mean, that was a bit of a feat. Just trying to do the research, trying to find out who made them, trying to get them all made in time. The cost was quite phenomenal. Can't tell you how much they cost, but you can imagine. But as a show, they're really good investment. And that's the other thing difference, I think, for Casualty is because we reuse things, we're very green, and we reuse a lot of our stuff. So the suits have been used on Holby. We've also the Salisbury poisoning, they borrowed them from. So, you know, that it's another thing that I have to think about is when I buy things that, like a big investment like those, they are an investment that we will get back tenfold in the sense of not having to rebuy them. So that's something else we have. So
very relevant.
It is very relevant. So this is an episode that I'm not actually sure is ever going to go out. We did this before COVID. It was a poisoning, basically. And so all our main cast had to wear these suits. All these suits are real. So the logistics of that was quite something. And costume had to take it on because obviously it's a costume, how it's worn. You can see that at the front, I don't know whether you can see underneath Amanda Mealing's, there's like a green light. Well, that was like a warning light that if it went red, we had to get them out of that suit ASAP because they had like its own air circulation in them. So even though I know a lot of people won't think that was our job, it became our job. And that's the thing with costume, we often get lumbered's not the word, is it? But we do
No,
end up,
we're often filling in the gaps.
We fill in the gaps, and we don't, you know. And I think even though it was an incredibly stressful episode because it was very different for the actors to deal with as well, because obviously you've got claustrophobia, and another time that costume have to be incredibly calm and not panic, and we had to do a lot of research for this, working out where we can get stuff from. Even the batteries don't last very long, so it's recharging all the batteries. There's a lot of logistics that I think a lot of people don't realise come with Casualty and with long-running drama. We have to learn things that I don't think sometimes you do on others.
Yeah, Tracy, sorry to interrupt you, but will you tell people about your background? Just because there's a lot of people who will come to Screen Skills, and some will be graduates and others won't have touched a college, or people are curious about what our backgrounds are.
So my background is I was a hairdresser, and I went to college and I did hairdressing for about 6 years, and I got a little bit bored, and then my father used to work at the BBC, so I was lucky when nepotism was a big thing then, and he just happened to say to me, why don't you go to costume? I have to say I've always been somebody always loved clothes, so for me that was probably the most exciting thing my father could have said to me. So I started off as a wardrobe operative, which is probably really, the job doesn't exist anymore. Basically, we used to just do we used to log in and log out all the costumes that were hired, and we used to get all the stuff that was needed for trucks and
in the donut.
In the donut, yeah, in the television centre, which on the third floor.
Yeah.
So, and then I progressed to being a dresser. Those days we were called dressers. A holiday relief dresser was what they used to term us, but we weren't really. We were just, I don't know, trainees to start with, wasn't it? So 3 months we weren't allowed to touch an actor. It was just dancers and I did some ironing in my time. I think Ray and I have both often said we have done some serious ironing. So we're very, I know Ray has started. We started at the bottom. I don't have a university degree. I've learnt my trade as, I've come on. so I think it's an industry that's open to everybody. It really is, and if you want it enough, you
And
can.
yeah, and the skills can vary, can't they, Tracy?
Yeah.
From the most skillful leather fabricator,
Oh,
or costume fabric dyer, or textile manipulator, or shopper, or organizer,
mm,
or somebody who loves to be in the laundry and
yeah.
organize and just be really organized about that, or people. I mean, some of my assistants just love being on the studio floor and looking after the actors.
I think it's knowing your strengths, isn't it? I think it's knowing your yeah, just knowing your strengths and always playing to those, isn't it? I mean, some people don't never want to be a designer, do they? They love
No,
being a supervisor, they love being a dresser or a standby, or
yeah,
you know, it's
yeah. I've worked with people who just, I keep trying to encourage them to become a costume supervisor, and they want to be wardrobe assistants and be on the studio floor and be with the crew and be with the actors and look after the actors. And they have a certain range of skills which are more interpersonal. They can sew, probably more than likely, but you know, they'll do the continuity, and they love being that person. And then I have a range of other people who are real kind of skilled. I mean, skilled in a more how do I say it? So we have costume makers,
yeah,
um,
that's
and we have fabricators, and we have people who make maquettes for creature heads, dyers, as I've said before, leather fabricators. So there are loads and loads of different skills involved within the costume world, um, and buying on a contemporary job, and sometimes you're making, or you're making doubles or triples. It's
a
just
skill in
like
itself, isn't it?
it's, you know, it's not to be sniffed at. It's a skill,
Yeah,
and it's a skill that's not as obvious as a costumes maker or a
yeah,
pattern cutter.
yeah,
Um, but it's still a major skill, and something that you need to learn, really.
yeah, yeah. There's so many different skills, like you say. I don't think um, people realise how much goes into it.
What,
You know, I have
yeah, what's the structure of your department?
so there's me. Then I have two sort of permanent assistants who are actually staff. One Fee, who is she's a maker really. She does all our alterations. She looks after all our iPads for Sync on Set. So she's like an administration maker. So you know, she has lots of skills. I mean, she's brilliant. And then there's Hilary, who is our buyer, who used to be a prop buyer actually, and so she's come into but started in costume at the BBC. So she does a lot of the admin, but you know, they both, I mean, Hilary has amazing buying skills. It's like you said, you know, the research, and because there's a lot of research finding things, you know, she does all the doubles and triples that we need for costume when we're doing stunts and things. So that skill is so important. And then we've got a designer who does each block, a supervisor, standby, two runners, and a trainee, sometimes two trainees, depending on where, because we get them from the BBC do their own training.
Diversity.
Yeah, diversity as well. So it depends how many. So it's a big crew, but it's a good opportunity to people to, like I said earlier, to start in the industry, because we
Yeah.
train.
And as we're talking about crews, shall I tell you what my crew is on
Yeah.
Well, shall I tell you my crew on? I'll tell you both. So on Fleabag, there was me, the costume designer, the costume supervisor, and the costume assistant on set. So there was just the three of us, and we had a trainee. who ran around like a mad thing, but I did all the buying and all the fittings, and that's all it was on Fleabag. On Doctor Who, there's me, the costume designer. I have an assistant costume designer. Then what we call the costume supervisor, who runs the trucks and day-to-day running of the department and the filming. 2 standbys for on-set and 1 permanent trainee for that series. And anything on top of that, because we do have enormous days and enormous kind of pressure on us to dress loads of creatures, any people on top of that are classed as dailies. So we have a permanent pool of dailies. So my departments are quite small compared to Tracy's, and you're running that your department constantly. I mean, I know I'm doing mine for 9 months of the year, but yeah, it's not as big as you think.
Yeah, I think it's just because I suppose casualty we have to think about is we try and make it because we get a 4-week schedule, which is unusual, isn't it, to have a schedule that's completely sealed down. So a lot of people come to casualty because they know that it's a bit of stability. And if you've got young children and you need childcare, if you know that you're going to start at 7 o'clock in the morning and then you're going to finish at 7 or 7:30, you can organise. But I think more sort of Doctor Who and Fleabag,
we are very intense. I mean, we are, it changes a lot.
Yeah.
When you're in it, you're in it. Yeah. And so it's not that it's not obvious. Some of my regular dailies are, are mums with small children who just happen to like the technical part of dressing creatures. But it's quite intense when you're in there. It's harder to step back and be and take time off or have downtime, because when you're for the whole 9 months, that's what it is for my very small team. And I think your teams, Tracy, can leapfrog, can't they, and have a little bit of you do your filming and then there's time.
I mean, they may have, some of the designers will do a whole block of so they'll probably work 10 weeks in a row, but then they will have, we have to, there's a break that people have from production, isn't it, that I think is across the board.
Yeah, and that's not, I mean, we do that on Doctor Who, so we can only work for 9 months.
Yeah.
But during our 9-month period of filming a series, we have no time. Literally, it's intense.
Yeah.
But I've just got a message from Lewis asking me to can I start talking about the Fleabag?
Yes, you should. You need to.
Do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay. There's me. Hello. So my background is a bit different from Tracy's in that I am from a working class background, but I went to college to be an actor. I ended up doing costume design and went to the BBC to be trained and start from the beginning. But you can find all that background out on various podcasts, so I won't bore you with it all now. But then I worked myself up through from a dresser to an assistant designer, and I think, Tracy, by the time I got to Television Centre, when you were there and we never met, I was an assistant designer, so I was the one coming in saying, we're doing this.
And a huge crew, wasn't it? I mean, the Television Centre was massive.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of people that were there was ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway.
And so, look, there's a picture of my lovely Olivia Colman, who's a darling, and I'm going to talk you through this costume because actually Olivia, while we made Fleabag, wasn't available because she was filming The Crown. So we could only have her on weekends. And to do fittings with Olivia, she came to us quite tired. She's such a lovely woman. And we had to do fittings on the day, or I would send her pictures of what was coming up. And more often than not, she wouldn't reply because she'd be so busy. So, so there's Olivia. That is her episode 1 costume from Fleabag. You can move away from that. I think we've all seen enough of that. Oh, Andrew. So I'll talk a little bit about Fleabag. So the structure of Fleabag is a different thing. It's a BBC production, BBC 3 production, so not very much money, very small teams within the creative teams. So the production design and set and costume design and makeup, we all had small teams, and intense conversations with Phoebe, with Andrew, not necessarily with Olivia, but with Sean, about character and about the meaning of Fleabag and how things should be. And so that was a kind of a really good example of how the costume designer collaborates through the departments. I did employ quite a few dailies on it, but we were a tiny team and it was filmed very quickly. I had a very, very small costume budget, so if I'd had a choice, now we're looking at Andrew Scott, I would have given him a more modern ecclesiastical robe for the wedding, but I didn't have a choice, so I had to hire it. And the things I had to really work out what I could design and make and what I couldn't. So it was quite a fine line, but we had such a good time. We can move. I don't know if you have any more Fleabag. Oh, here we are, the wedding. So, the thing about Fleabag is that every single episode was a different story. So we were in the restaurant, we were at a wedding, we had an episode about funeral, about her mum's death and the flashbacks. We had the church episode, and we had the business meetings, the business awards, and there were just loads and loads of costumes for very little money and very little time. I think we made it in either 5 or 6 weeks. So 3 or 4 weeks prep and 5 or 6 weeks filming intensely, and also in going in to see Phoebe every morning and talking about not necessarily what was happening that day, but what she'd like for the next day or later on in the week and the schedule. And as we were making the series, we didn't have a cast up front, but the cast came in so I spent very little time on set. I was running around London like a mad thing, trying to get the right tone for each episode. And I don't know if there are any other pictures for Fleabag. Oh, here we go, Doctor Who. Okay. So, how do I explain Doctor Who? Okay, Doctor Who is a different process. So, I've designed quite a lot of Doctor Who episodes, and the process on Doctor Who is that we get a script, and once we've got our script, we'll do some research on that script. We look at the environment, the location, whether it's contemporary, whether it's period, whether it's futuristic, what the creatures are. We'll do as much research, and we'll do something called mood boards. So we gather as much visual evidence and visual reference as we can together. And I'll use the visual reference that I like and reference the writing and the mood of that episode. And if I get a chance, and most often I do get a chance, I will be courting the director once we've started filming on Doctor Who, we're always filming, but we do 2 episodes in a block, and each director does 2 episodes, and there'll be a director in prep while that's filming. So I can talk quite clearly with the director and the producer about and with Chris Chibnall about what we think we need for the tone meeting. So once we've got all the information, we have something called a tone meeting, and they last for quite a long time. So they could last for a whole day for 2 episodes. and we all present our imagery. And we all discuss it, and we discuss what imagery we like and what imagery we don't like. And in the tone meetings, there's every head of department. So we will have the executive producers, the director of that block. You'll have the production designer. You will have the special effects guys. You'll have anybody there who's interested in putting in a bid for the creatures and locations. So we'll all be there, and it'll be it's very interesting. That's where you get to learn what locations are good, and so you can find out more about the environment of the episode. But after the tone meeting is done, you go away with a solid, maybe not sometimes solid, but sometimes not, but you got a solid load of information. So if you're going to design a creature or the guest artists, you know the direction you're traveling in. If there's a period episode, you show suitable, like period episode. That was Byron. You know, I really, really wanted him to swish round in that, and decided that we would make it, make the whole outfit, because he was in the whole of the episode, presented the references, and they really liked them. So once you're away from the tone meeting, it's almost like a green light. And then this is this is Rosa. We were in South Africa. This is a different kind of period construction. What happened here? Well, obviously Byron, you kind of look at period references and you can be quite imaginative. Because this was Rosa Parks, and we've been quite respectful of what she wore on the bus, I wanted to be as faithful to that outfit as possible. So a lot of research went into this. This was the first time after the costume was built and made, and we were in South Africa. This is the moment. Somebody took a photograph of the moment that I was presenting Vinette with the complete costume. So, and we were really happy. There's a hat on the head somewhere, and the glasses were great, and the coat is about to go on. And so we were really thrilled about that. But basically, after we've done the tone meetings, there's a whole process that happens. We probably get about 4 weeks after a tone meeting, in which we'll refine the way that characters look. I mean, now, this thing on screen here, which is from the Witchfinders episode, this young lady, who was brilliant, her costume, she wasn't cast until like the day she was on set, but I wanted her costume made and broken down, and we didn't know what size it was going to be. So we were in the workroom, and we got work experience students from the Welsh College of Music and Drama, and I got them to make this bodice, to make the cloak, to make the skirt, do the apron, edge it, lace it, and it was all a wing and a prayer. And as soon as we got her, I then had to put it on her and get her onto set. So we put it on her the day before, did all the alterations, but that I have a workroom for that, and the workroom can be empty some episodes and can be full the next episode. So Ruth Doctor, this was a great little collaborative process. I knew Jo from Fleabag, and from Wizards vs. Aliens, and I knew that I wanted a fantastic costume, but I knew also I didn't have time to make it because of casting. We were literally in Bulgaria when Jo was cast, filming on a different episode, which was set in 1908 or 1904. So I had to fly back, and I didn't have time to build a costume or do any tailoring, and I knew I wanted it to be tailored. So I did loads of research about what I could do. It just so happens that I knew this particular tweed company, and I said before I took Jo there, I said, look, I'd like it to be based around this, but the director and I were talking about the shirt, I was going to put a period shirt on her in good Doctor Who tradition. And the director said, well, why don't we give her an African shirt, African fabric shirt? So I thought that was a brilliant idea and married the African fabric to a period shirt and got a lovely lady called Ashley, who was on our diverse training scheme, and put her in the workroom while we were in Bulgaria and said, make that. Poor old Ashley. So Ashley made it. I think we had to meet on a Friday. And Joe and I did the whole of costuming for Ruth. Luckily, these didn't fit that well, but I pinned it all up, took it away, got it tailored over the weekend, and I think she was in on the Monday. So that's how quick we do things. In terms of creatures, this little sequence is from South Africa, and those light creatures, I think when people saw the episodes, were people thought they were CGI, but they were real and they were quite technical. Here's another creature from series 11. You've just missed, I've forgotten her name, Ava. She's now her costume was a mixture. So that's another quick costume. It's a mixture of hire and makes and customizing something that's made. So we can go now. But we flash this again. This is a classic example of a costume stroke prosthetic creature, which I did the whole lot of, but soft costuming there was a light in the head, and with a performer in there, and then Robert Alsop, who makes brilliant creatures, worked out how to do that kind of faceless robotic head. I don't know what's next. Oh yeah, and here we go. Talking of robots, so it gets quite technical on Who, and this is another example of a collaboration between costuming and creature making. So the eyes on these postmen light up. I think we had 12 performers, and as you can see, this is a picture of. This is something that we did a drawing. Robert's company did a clay maquette. We worked out the tone of the face and the smile and how creepy it was going to be. We worked out how to remote control the lights, and beside that, they were wearing old-fashioned style postman's uniforms, which I got work experience people to edge in red. So there's loads of sewing going on. And I think it took about 3 days to fit them. But it was really good in terms of training, because there were 3 or 4 trainees in the workroom, and they loved them. They loved seeing the process. And again, here's another example of costume stroke prosthetics. So the heads here are a prosthetic makeup. The costume and the armor is all me. So I didn't have anything to do with the heads. And these, now I'm going to talk more about these, because these are a total me. And we had not a lot of trouble, but it was quite tricky to get these to be safe and to do what we wanted them to do on camera, complete light creatures, and to do this on camera abroad and in this country. So we kind of spent 3 or 4 weeks testing the layers of fabric, what lights we could put in there, how much you could actually see on screen, how the lights showed up, how much technical stuff needed to be done in post-production, how their heads are not real human heads. And for this in particular, which is another thing that people possibly don't think of, I had to have a specialist costume electrician to be with the creatures. And I mean, yeah, the BBC are really lovely and the producers are lovely. But when I took that to them and said, we're going to have to send a costume electrician to South Africa. They kind of looked at me and went, oh, really? How much is that going to cost? But, it's just part of my job. We work out how much it's going to cost and we make sure it's safe. So we had 6 of these, and I think one night they even filmed in the rain. These light suits are attached to a 6-meter length of electrical cable. So they can walk, but they're quite technical. Is that a cue? Will somebody tell me?
It is a cue, yeah. Sorry about that, Ray. I know we could all listen to you both all day. It's absolutely brilliant, but I've tried to stretch it as long as we can go because we've got so many questions. So I'd love to be able to ask you some of the questions that people have put to us, which is brilliant. So if that's okay, again, thank you so much, Tracy and Ray. That's been fantastic. So questions, without further ado. You both collaborate with cast in terms of costume, but do you all also gain any inspiration from the location or the mood of the scene?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's even to the point of the location is the weather. There's the time of year. There's, isn't there? There's all those things that we have to take into account.
It's very different for me and you, isn't it, Tracy? Because I'll be thinking about, on Doctor Who, I may be thinking about a location that's in Tenerife and meant to be on a different planet. Yeah. Where's my picture of the dregs?
Yeah, and we may be filming somebody hanging off a cliff, and then we have to think about whether they can get a harness underneath it, or, it's all those things, and not being able to see it, and they don't want to do CGI because it's too expensive. So it's obviously budgetary as well. So we have to think on our feet about how to make things work, but obviously trying to. And
many ways, it's the same for us, isn't it? Because whatever we do in CGI is very expensive, and we have to know. So for me, it'll be connections with arms and necks on creatures. It'll be the weather.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all those things we both have to. Yeah, because you can't have an actor cold, can you? If you have an actor cold, then the performance goes out the window, and then it's your fault.
Yeah. Well, yes,
so second question, how much, so talking about cast, how much influence does cast members have in agreeing their character's style?
A bit, quite a bit, but go on, Tracy, you say.
I think I think they do to a point. I think sometimes long running, maybe they have maybe a bit more say, because obviously they're in it for such a long time, unless it's something very, very specific. Like we have David, who's got bipolar, so we have to do little, and I'm sure you're the same, Ray, you have to do little character things, like he's got a bum bag where his drugs are in, and like he used to wear a necklace with his wedding ring round it to say, to remind him that's what he lost because he didn't take his tablets. So you have to let them have their say, don't you? And
absolutely. And the biggest thing about that for me is, like, doing a doctor's costume. Of course, I will talk to the actor loads. I don't have to wear the costume, and so they will have a huge say in the matter.
Yeah.
And that goes for not just the doctor, but every character. But you very rarely do you get a point of standoff. That doesn't happen. It's a collaboration.
I mean, if you do need help, then sometimes you can talk to a producer, can't you? If there's something that's, but I've very rarely had an issue, to be honest.
So trying to combine two questions into one slightly. Can you be too old to start work in a costume department? Is there a kind of age bracket?
No.
There is there's no isms. There's no isms.
No.
Yeah, good.
I don't think it's too old, to be honest. I think just have to be aware of the hours. That's all.
Well, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I think for people coming in realising that it's takes your life a little bit, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, and young trainees, older trainees, I think they get quite surprised at the hours we work.
Mm-hmm. It's something to get used to, isn't it?
And that's always the thing, isn't it, Tracy? That's always the thing.
Yeah.
The loss of freedom in your life because of the hours.
And that's why a lot of people come to Casualty, because you can have not a big part of your life, but you can have a little bit of a life.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for people who may be currently working in theatre but would like to try and move over into working in television? In costume, working in theatre costume.
Yeah, I think I think that get onto a training scheme. And now, having said that, that sounds really easy, but there are training schemes are few and far between. And so look, do a bit of research really, get to know people who work in television, if you can. Maybe send your CV to costume designers agents,
Yeah.
or write to write to, I'm at Doctor Who, Tracy's a Casualty. Look at what people are doing where. Look at screen skills, and creative. Am I confusing it? Did you used to be creative skill set?
We did, yes. We renamed just to confuse you again.
Because they used to, I remember writing, writing apprenticeship stuff for creative.
Yes, there we are. And we run a trainee program which has costumes, so please do check that out.
I've just literally taken on I took a designer on who was at the Donmar. She was the head of costume at Donmar, and as a runner, actually, her skills, I have to say, have been, they're so transferable from theatre to TV.
Absolutely. I mean,
she's brilliant, and I think it's so possible. It's just getting a foot in the door, isn't it?
And if people are sending you a CV or to an agent or to your department, should they send any examples of work, any photos, or is it just a plain CV? What would it kind of ignite your interest more if you saw their work?
I would say don't send loads and loads, because people like me and Tracy are very busy. I mean, tell us if you can drive. That's a really important one. Do send a few pictures, but keep your CV to one page. It can be a double-sided page, but don't send 5 sheets of intense writing, because more often than not, we won't be able to read it.
Simpler the better, really.
And also be aware that, we're not the only productions in the world. There are loads of productions, lots of productions in South Wales, and we have a finite number of people we can help. And we do try to help as many as possible. So inevitably there'll be disappointment, but just keep going and keep introducing yourself to designers and assistant designers.
And supervisors even, isn't it? Because some productions have real issues getting crowd days covered. So they will take somebody on with less experience just because they need bodies, even if it's just to carry cover coats. If you've got, I don't know, 200 extras and essays, and you need cover. Sometimes if you get hold of supervisors or assistant designers, just it's legwork though, isn't it, Ray? It's just not giving up, isn't it? It's persevering.
And also just by doing those little things, you get to see how a set is run, and it's always a learning process. I started off by, ironing shirts, even though I knew how to iron shirts.
And then a question which you've kind of answered, but I think it's useful just to kind of reflect back on it, is if somebody's sending you a CV and sending you their details, is there a finite amount of times they should resend you their CV? Should they send it once a month? Is that annoying? Where do you keep them? Is there a store, or is it a case of if you send it me again in a few months, that's useful because it rejogs my memory? Or
I think we have to be careful keeping them now because of
data protection.
Yes.
But I think, if I'm right, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think if you write on your CV that you're happy for people to keep it on file, then I think that we're allowed to. But if you don't put that on there, that's another thing. I don't know whether, am I right, Kay? I think, don't you have to put something on there to say that the CVs that they're happy to keep?
I don't know the whole GDPR. I would have thought, you have to be able to surely keep them for a little while. Just burn them as soon as you've read them. That would be a bit of...
It's different for both of us though, because this is the difference between you on your continuing drama and me on Doctor Who. So if I can't help you on a series of Doctor Who, I can't, unless something extraordinary happens, I can't help you. But thereafter, it's just about doing your research and work and seeing what's being commissioned and who's doing what.
Yeah.
And more often than not, it's all there out on the internet. So the person who can find out what job I'm doing next is a good one. I would normally say.
Yeah. I mean,
so I'm going to ask, oh, sorry, go on, Tracy.
No, just saying casualty is quite good because we're continuous.
Mm-hmm.
So we get people, and particularly in Cardiff, we get people who drop out because they'll take another job, but they'll always, they'll come back. So casualty is good for the fact that it is filming constantly. So, you just need to persevere, really.
Yeah.
With long-running drama is a good way to step in because they've always got people dropping out because they'll go off and do something else.
And we will always talk, won't we, Tracy?
Yeah.
We'll say, oh, we got this lovely person through.
Yeah.
Look, have you, even if we can't help immediately, we'll always know their names.
That's great to hear. So I'm going to ask one last question because we are actually over time. So apologies. Hopefully everyone doesn't mind. We have slightly overrun, only slightly. So it's actually more of a practical question about your jobs. Do you prefer making or buying a costume?
I prefer making.
Yeah, I think making is, I think so. I mean, we don't do a lot in casualty, to be honest, but it is, and we all get very excited when we do have to make something in casualty. If it's,
you're more in control of it, aren't you?
Yeah, and it is quite funny how everyone is very excited in costume when it's particularly casualty when we have to make something.
Brilliant. Finally, really to say thank you so much, obviously, to Ray and to Tracy for today. It's been a brilliant, fascinating session, and hopefully you've all really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us, and we'll see you again at the next session soon, we hope. Thanks.